So hi all, I'm Dr. Devaruti Haldar and I'm going to give a lecture now on victimology, especially on victim-offender relationship. So let me start with the present situation. Who is a victim and how that particular unit or the sect of the victims can be called as victims. Consider present situation. We are all in a quarantine situation where we cannot go out, we cannot go to our favorite movie theaters, parlors, or even for parks, etc., or for example for a long distance drive, etc. And in such case, what happens? We are quarantined, we cannot have a social networking, not the online social networking, but social networking even with our neighbors, because even they're also feeling a little bit of afraid to talk with us, considering the fact that the disease, that is the COVID virus, may spread from person to person. Can we be considered as victims? Now, if we see from the victimological perspective, victimology is the study of scientific study of victims, and victimology necessarily speaks about the presence of an offender and also his target, that is the victim. Now, in many cases, we have seen that there can be only the victim and the offender may not be there. Consider the situation right now, as I was telling. Many of us, international stakeholders and also countries, they believe that here the perpetrator is a specific country from where the pandemic situation has actually spread or has started. Now, we all are victims. We are victims of a particular spreading of a disease. It is a public health emergency, and we are victimized, we are traumatized, we are quarantined, etc. But I'm not going to discuss only about this kinds of environmental victimology only, because this is what is the subject of environmental victimology. I'm going to discuss about the very basic understanding about who is a victim and what is his relationship with the offender, and how does this relationship attract victimization, or it may cause victimization. Let me begin with the founder of victimology, in the modern period. The founder of victimology in the modern period is none other than Benjamin Mendelssohn. Benjamin Mendelssohn was a criminal defense lawyer. Now, as a defense lawyer, how will he start the understanding of victimology? When he was doing his research about his clients, that is the offenders, he started researching as how the victims have attracted the offenders, how the victims have contributed to the causation of victimization. And through this, he started developing the concept of victimology, which was later supported by many other victimologists, including Hans von Hentig. So today I'm going to discuss about these two victimologists who have contributed towards the development of victimology. According to Benjamin Mendelssohn, victimization of any person or a group of persons may not happen until and unless there is a contribution from the victims. Now, this contribution can be something like, there can be an innocent victim who may not have done anything, but he or she may have attracted the victimization because he or she may have been put up in a situation where the offender had found a perfect target. And as the routine activity theory also says, that particular situation where the target was there, that is the victim was there, the motivated offender was there, but there was no guardian. Now, who is this guardian? Now, if you are a student of law, or if you are a practitioner, or you are a faculty, you will understand that this meaning of guardian will be having two understanding. One is that the biological guardian, or a guardian for a child, or a guardian for any person. For example, if it is a child, the guardian could be, the lawful guardian could be the parents or any other person who has got the proper authority to understand or to give consent for the child's good things to be done with the child, or the proper development of the child. But in other cases also, we have another kind of guardian, that is the police. Now, when you go out during this quarantine situation, many places you get to see that, and especially why I'm talking about only the physical space. If you are a follower of TikTok, or if you are on the TikTok, even in Instagram also, you do get to see that there are so many memes are being created, right? And so many actual things are also happening whereby the police is beating the persons who are coming out. Now, why the police is beating the persons? Because as a proper guardian, the police is actually preventing the persons from coming out getting victimized again, because the people who are coming out, they might get contacted with the other persons, that is the COVID positive patients, and it will be spreading from person to person. Now here we get to see that how the police becomes a proper guardian. According to Benjamin Mendelssohn, that this particular guardianship, I mean, even though routine activity theory was not created by him, he is the father of victimology, but according to Benjamin Mendelssohn, these kinds of victims, because of their behavior, etc., they might attract the victimization. So what we get to see here, one offender, that is one wrongdoer, and also another victim who is the target of that particular wrongdoer. Now, according to Benjamin Mendelssohn, there are different kinds of victims, and these kinds of victims may differ according to their own behavior, their own contribution towards the victimization. Now, the first one, as I stated just now, is the innocent victim. Who is an innocent victim? For example, a person has gone out and it is very normal, the situation is very normal, there is nothing to be worried about, there is no 144 situation, there is nothing. But once the victim has gone out, there was a motivated offender who was waiting. Either it can be a thief, or it can be any person who is having some motivation to commit an offense. So suddenly this offender comes and attacks that particular victim who is completely innocent, who has taken all care of himself so that he does not become victimized. But he has found that his purse has gone, it has been snatched. Or for example, any other victim who is going out, especially female victim, and suddenly she finds that some men have actually surrounded her, and then eve teasing is going on. Now, can they be considered to be some victim who has actually contributed to the victimization? This is something which Benjamin Mendelssohn discussed, and he found out that it is not only the activity of the completely innocent victim. In such case, offender becomes the complete liable person to have committed the crime or to have caused the victimization. There are other kinds of victims also. For example, victims with minor guilt, victim with more guilt, victim who is more guiltier than the offender, and then victim as equally guilty as the offender, and also victims who are imaginary victim. Now I will discuss one by one. Victims with minor guilt. Now you will see that in certain cases, in certain regions, like geographic regions, there are cultural habits are there whereby you will get to see, if any one of you have visited South India or any other parts, especially if you go to Northeast also, you will get to see this kind of cultural habits. Where you get to see that women and men, they love to wear gold. And probably you have heard about M.G. Ramachandran, who was the erstwhile Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, and there was a myth that he used to eat gold powder. Now you can understand, I mean, this is just something that I would like to share, because this is what we also heard when we were children. Now what happens is that if any person from Tamil Nadu or from Kerala or from, say for example, Andhra Pradesh, etc., they come to northern states, they cannot give up these kinds of habits. Especially, I will tell one more case, one more example, where you get to see that women from South India, they have a habit of wearing gold chain. And जो मंगलसूत्र जिसको बोलते हैं ना, तो they have got the thick chains, and the the मंगलसूत्र, that locket is there, that we call it as tali over there. So everything is made of gold. Now suppose these kinds of women, they are coming out, they are going to the any temple, etc. in northern India, definitely they will attract the offenders, and in such cases they are coming with some kinds of guilt, because they are probably repeatedly told that when you are going outside, do not wear gold ornaments, but they have, and thereby they have attracted the offenders, and thereby the offender has done this chain snatching, etc., and thereby they can they have actually victimized the victims. In some other cases also, you do get to see that there are persons who are the victims, who have provoked the offenders. Nanavati's case, if you have seen in the IPC, that in such cases the provocation is done by the victim himself or herself, and the offender could not control himself or herself, and has given some 2-3 tight slaps, or have beaten the victim, and thereby the victim has fallen down, victim has undergone the injury, etc., or the victim may have also died. So in such cases also, you will get to see that the contribution of the victim may have existed, and thereby the the offender's relationship with the victim actually establishes the fact that the victim is not doing something which is without any sort of she or he is not a completely innocent victim. Further, you will also get to see there are some kinds of victims who may have done something, and as a consequence of the same, the offender, in order to protect himself, it's in a self-defense mode, he has probably hit the victim, the victim in the sense the person who has now undergone some kinds of bodily injury, etc. Or in some cases you will also get to see, again I'm going back to Nanavati's case again, that he has done this shooting to the victim, etc., whereby the person who has now fallen down, he or she is actually has become the victim of physical injury which has been done by the offender. Now the question here is that in such cases, whether the offender can actually go through the punishment which is the established statutory punishment that has been provided by the penal laws. Benjamin Mendelssohn was very clear, because he was a defense lawyer. He was very clear that when the victim's contribution should also be counted, then at that time the criminal liability of the offender must not be considered as a full liability, and in such cases the victim's contribution must also be counted. Let me tell you about imaginary victims. There are several persons who may feel that when they go out, somebody is going to come and beat them, somebody is going to grope them, somebody is going to push them from backside, etc. In such cases, there is a psychological understanding that these kinds of victims, when they go out, they are always afraid of some kind of things, and whether it has been done, whether it has not been done, they will always be targeting some person or other, that person is a particular perpetrator. Consider these kinds of situations, like I'm giving an example, but you may also experiment with such kinds of examples. Two neighbors, and they are not very good friendly neighbors. So this person who is a victim and who is an imaginary victim may think that his window, this glass has been broken. That's because of the other neighbor's child's throwing of the cricket ball, or etc. He will not see whether that particular glass window was already old and that is the reason it has been broken, or somebody has put some stones, etc., pelted some stones, etc., that's why it is broken. But he always imagines at the back of his head that this is the person who has created some kinds of offense. Now these are the 6 kinds of victims that Benjamin Mendelssohn discussed about, and he also discussed that this is the relationship between the offender and the victim, whereby whether the victim knew the offender, whether the victim did not know the offender, or whether the victim had come to know of the offender because the offender had some history of committing an offense, and after that he had come out of the criminal justice system as a person who had been released convict, or the person who has been admonished, etc. So in such cases, the victim always feels that nay, I will not go near him because he will commit some kinds of offensive behavior, etc., towards me. Or in cases of interpersonal victimization, that I just told you, that there can be some provocation, there can be some guiltier victims, some kinds of nagging victims, etc. There, these kinds of things we do get to see in the interpersonal victimization also. Now these kinds of abstract ideas and also some solid ideas, these were further contributed more by Hans von Hentig. Hans von Hentig was also a criminologist and victimologist who did research on the relationship between the victim and the offender and how the victim attracts the offender. Now in this particular case, in Hans von Hentig's case, he came up with his own understanding. Just a second, because this thing was going on. So he came up with his own understanding that there are two things that we must understand to understand that what is the relationship between the victim and the offender. For Benjamin Mendelssohn, we were discussing about one person to another person or a group of persons to another group of persons. Benjamin Mendelssohn came up with an understanding that there are two things. One is that victim vulnerability, that is victim susceptibility. That means for no fault of the victim, the victim can be victimized. What are the the examples? For example, a woman victim or a group of women victims. Now they can be victimized because they are women, and it's because of their gender, it's because of their the body shape, etc. They might attract the offenders. Now this is not something which I am talking about, and this is not something about victim blaming, but this is what Hans von Hentig actually explained, that why such kinds of victims become the victims of sexual offenses or any other sorts of offenses. He also gave some kinds of explanations. For example, right now we are getting to see these migratory laborers. Now they had started from a particular state where they were residing for doing some jobs, etc. And immediately after this lockdown was lockdown came into effect, they started from that particular place to go to their home place. Now what happened, we got to see lots of newses whereby you get to see that some of the persons have died en route, some of the persons, especially the children, they were not able to get any food, etc. So what happens, they have become the victims, and here comes the question of victim vulnerability. That means they have not done anything to attract the victimization, but because they are somebody who were migrating or who are migratory laborers, it is because of that fact now they have become victims of the circumstances. They may have also become victims of some kinds of offenses also. The other thing is that victim culpability. What is the meaning of victim culpability? Here Benjamin Mendelssohn actually emphasized on the behavior of the victims. Again going back to I'm talking about Hans von Hentig. So again going back to Benjamin Mendelssohn's that 6 groups or categories of victims, Hans von Hentig also stated that victim culpability actually includes the behavior of the victims which attracts victimization. For example, on the basis of this lifestyle exposure theory actually was created, and also while it was created, it also got more exposure. What does lifestyle exposure theory say? It says that when a particular person is behaving in a certain fashion, it becomes his lifestyle, and because of that, that particular person may attract victimization. For example, the lifestyle of one particular person demands that he has to go out in the night. Consider this health workers who are now going out in the night. Consider again some other persons who may have got night duty, etc. And you may never know that during the night, because there is an absence again of a particular guardian, that is the police. So they may be contacted by the offender, etc. And because it is night, so there are streets which are maybe completely empty streets, and if they are victimized, if their chains are snatched, if their purses are snatched, if somebody comes and beats them from backside also, they may not be getting proper immediate help. And for this you will get to see that the case of Nirbhaya is also very much important case that has been in question by victimologists. Again I am telling, this is not victim blaming, but this is what the victimologists understanding, that is the victim culpability. Now in many occasions you may have got to see, especially from the defense lawyer in case of Nirbhaya's case, the question that came up was that why would she go in the middle of not in the middle of the night, but in the late night, that is around 10 o'clock, etc. 10 o'clock time, why would she take a public vehicle? Why would she make herself available to the offenders who had raped her? Now there may be, like, as a victim's lawyer, I may say that there may be several occasions, there may be several reasons that she may have had to take the public vehicle. But this defense lawyers have got another understanding that if she knew because of her gender she might be attracting the offenders, she should have not gone in the public vehicle. Now this is a question of victimological understanding. Lots of debates can go on, but still then this was the understanding of Hans von Hentig when he was discussing about the victim culpability. Depending upon this, he created three main classification of the victims. One is general kind of victims, the other is psychological types of victims, and the last one is activating sufferers. Let me tell you what is the general kind of victim. Hans von Hentig here very clearly stated that general kind of victims can be: one is child, or the young persons, the second is none other than the women, and the third is senior citizens or the old persons as we popularly call them. Now I will start from the last category of the victims. Why the old persons or the senior citizens are the vulnerable victims, and what can be the relationship with them with the offenders, or what could be their contribution towards the causation of the victimization. Now the old persons or the senior citizens may not be as strong physically, may not be as strong as the adults or as the young adults. Okay, whenever somebody comes, like for example chain snatching, or say for example beating or hitting with some rod, or even for example motor vehicle accident cases, you will get to see that their chance of survival is very low. Why? Because again I'm telling, physically they are fragile. Same thing goes for the young group of victims also, that is the children. Now children from the age group of 0 to 18, you will get to see there are variety of levels, different kinds of levels for them to actually sustain the injuries, to actually sustain the victimization. If it is a very young child, say for example 0 to 2 years, if anybody sexually abuse the child, or for example if anybody abuse the child non-sexually also, such a young child may not survive. For example, if the child is unwanted, okay, and she may be, or he may be a rape child, or he may be an unwanted child, and the parents or the mother especially have shown utmost negligence and have thrown the baby either on the dustbin or in the bushy area, etc., and you will get to see that the child is the baby is now being attacked by the dogs, etc., or being attacked by any other perpetrator who might be picking up the child for using the child for trafficking, using the child for begging, etc. In that case the child cannot do anything, because the child is physically and also psychologically is completely a young child. Now coming to older children, you see, from when the child grows up from the age of 5 to say for example 10 or even 15, they might have some understanding, the maturity level is not that high, they might have some understanding that how to run away from that particular abusive relationship, that is the mother or the father, or the adopted mother and the father, or the place of safety where they are staying. They are getting to see that they are being always being traumatized, always being beaten, etc. They might run away from that place. Now when they run away from that place, there was an existing relationship between the child, that is the general category of the victims, and also between the offenders. That is, it is again a kind of interpersonal victimization, because it is the child and the parent, it is the child and the guardian who were in a relationship of the victim and the offenders. But when the child runs away to save his or her life, it is because of the lack of maturity. He might fall into some other sorts of say for example victimization position. For example, the child can be kidnapped, the child can be again taken by the sexual offenders, the child can be used for racketing, etc., or the child can be allured to go for smuggling, etc., and the child can be even be introduced to drug addiction also. So in that case also, as Benjamin Mendelssohn Hans von Hentig stated, that it is the victim culpability that actually works, and also it is the victim susceptibility that works. The last one, the second one especially, I mean, after this thing, women victims, we all know that women are actually victimized, maybe because of their gender, maybe because of their physical stature, etc. Now I will go for the other sort of categories of victimization, which is very interesting, especially by since it was made by, I mean, created by Hans von Hentig. It's very interesting. Within the group of psychological victims, Hans von Hentig has actually categorized some kinds of like typical psychological victims. The first can be mentally ill persons, that means who are like completely out of their minds. They may do some offenses, they may do some kinds of activities which may attract more victimization, because they may not know, their maturity level is also not proper. They may not know that what they are doing. For example, if you see any mental health patient or any person who is mentally challenged is actually going outside and there is no guardian, etc., he or she, especially if it is a female victim, immediately she can be taken by the predators, she can be taken by the sexual perpetrators, she can be subjected to lots of sexual offenses, etc. And you might also get to see that kind of mentally disabled persons can also be taken from that particular custody of a particular person, and she or he may be transferred to some other jurisdiction, that is trafficked, etc. Either it is for organ trafficking or for any other sort of trafficking. The second one is that immigrants or minorities. What happens to the immigrants? This is also psychological understanding which Hans von Hentig tried to club up with victimological understanding. Consider the present situation now. Many persons have gone as an immigrant to many other countries. Not only immigrant, even many persons have gone for a temporary residence in other countries, because they have gone for studying, they have gone for higher education, or they have also gone for some kinds of work, etc. What happens in such cases? You will get to see that now they are not able to come back to their country. Even if they are not able to come back to their country, they are not able to even get some food also in that particular country where they are staying. Now these are also like psychologically they become very depressed, and they may commit some other offenses, like they might go for stealing, etc. And they become the they become the sufferers also. There is one more interesting category, especially those who are watching me here, you will appreciate the fact. Have you heard about lonesome heartbroken victims? If not, then let me tell you, Hans von Hentig has also categorized them as victims. What happens when a particular person has been ditched by his or her boyfriend, or when a particular person has been ditched by, left by his or her spouse? In that case, you will get to see that this particular person may become the victim because it is cheating, breach of trust, etc. And they become completely devastated. They become very depressed. But at the back of their head, they know that this particular perpetrator is a known person, and they become something like revenge taking mentality comes in their mind, that jab bhi mauka milega, I will do something that this person also goes through the same situation. I know several persons, especially because I also work on the cybercrime field. I have seen that when these kinds of things are going on, like that is, there is a breach of trust, there is ditching of the, loved ones, etc. These people immediately come to the online, platforms, and the victim, that is the person who has undergone this, this heartbrokenness, lonesomeness, etc. They might take to the, to the online platforms, and they become victim turned offenders. Now here, they were victims because they were being victimized by their, partners, by their live-in partners, by their, chosen boyfriends or girlfriends, and they could have carried on with the tag of victim. That means that I have been promised to be married by a person, but that person has left me without any reason. That person has broken my heart, blah blah blah. But at the same time, when he feels or when she feels that नहीं मैं इसको छोड़ूंगी नहीं और मैं इसको छोड़ूंगा नहीं, तो immediately he goes to the online platform, he creates a fake profile. He goes to the online platform and he creates a revenge porn material. So in such case, who becomes the offender? The victim. Now there is a changing of the place. That means the victim has now become the offender. The offender has now become the victim. Now again, there are some other kinds of victims also are there, as Benjamin Mendel Hans von Hentig had stated. Now these are actually the lonesome victims. The other category that I was actually discussing, this is also falling within the heartbroken victims, but lonesome victims. Who are they? Consider like widows or widowers, or the persons who have lost their very near and dear ones. Now they have lost these near and dear ones either because of their age, or because of some accidents, or because of some other sorts of natural calamities, etc., and they have become victims. Now how they become victims? Because again they are also very much depressed victims, and they might not have the control over their own minds, so they might go away with, or they might go ahead for doing something to come out of that victimization, to come out of that trauma that I have lost my near and dear ones. That is the reason you will get to see that in most cases, if a young widow who has lost her husband, especially when the husband was actually working in the army, etc., there are so many persons to console that particular person, and after 1 or 2 years that particular widow will also be told that you get married again, you do the remarriage again, so that it is the societal understanding that she does not commit something which is detrimental to her own self, to her family, to her society. Again, this is a very big debate for the feminist perspective, but at the same time you will get to see when a person loses his or her dear ones or near ones, he or she starts behaving in a very abnormal fashion, and that abnormal fashion is not going to stay back for the permanently, or for the entire age of that, or entire life of that particular victim who has lost the near and dear one. It may the victim may actually recover from that particular situation within 1 day, or within 1 week, or even within 1 year. You will get to see in such cases the victim may try to commit suicide because of the loneliness. The victim may try to do some more kinds of things, like in extreme situations I have seen that the victim might go ahead, if it is a matter of accident, the victim might go ahead to kill that person because of whom the accident has happened. I will tell you here a case study I was doing. This is not from India, but this is from US. One particular person has been murdered, and he was a young youth. He was hardly 22. He was murdered because of the racial violence, and he was black, and the other person who is the offender, he was a Caucasian, Hispanic probably, he is white. Now when the offender was arrested, investigation led to the framing of the charges, and he was convicted. Now when the entire trial was going on, and it was shown in the live videos also, that the parents of the victim, that is the murdered victim, were sitting there, and both of them were in their mid 50s to 60s. So they were listening very peacefully, but at the time when the defense counsel was coming up and he was giving some kinds of explanation, they could not hold themselves, especially the father. He could not hold himself back. He tried to jump on the accused person, and he tried to beat the person. Now see, this is the psychological situation of a person who has lost his near and dear ones. So this was Hans von Hentig's understanding about the psychological grouping of the victims. The other one is that victim turned offender, that is the activating sufferer. Now as I am giving the examples about one victim is turning into an offender, these are the person who can also be considered as somebody who did not want to become the offender, but they became the offender because the situation had pushed them, and they did not have the control over their head and their mind. And that's the reason they decided that no, this is not the way that we will be enjoying, or we will be benefited by the criminal justice system. We should also do something. We should also commit something. We should also inflict physical harm on that particular person who has done the same thing to our child, or to our say for example husband, wife, etc., so that we can be satisfied. And this goes back to the ancient era of victimology, where if you have studied the development of victimology, you will get to see that is called as a golden era of victimology. That is the ancient period of victimology, where the victim's demand was actually the last command over the offender's fate. If the victim decided, and that also created something called retributive theory. This actually says that if the offender has done something whereby the victim has lost his or her limbs, etc., the victim can demand the same thing to be done with the offender. Now, this psychological group of or categorization of the victims, they feel that that should be done with the offender also. There is one more kind of victim, and the relationship with the victim and offender can be a very unique situation, that is the blocked victim. Now here what happens, for example, the Me Too movement victims, you all have actually seen this Me Too movement, whereby you get to see when the person was being victimized, the offender was a very much dominant personality. The offender was in a position to actually hold back the victim's job, and also the offender may have threatened that if the victim comes up for reporting, the victim will be undergoing some great loss of reputation. The victim can also be killed. And in such cases, the victim might not have actually dared to report these matters. Now what happens, they became blocked victims. They did not want to openly discuss with anybody, but somehow they felt that nahi, mujhe bolna hai, like I need to speak out. And then came the Me Too movement, especially for the women victims and the workplace. And it actually started with the film industry and also with the news channel industries, etc., whereby especially the women, they were being sexually victimized, they were being physically victimized, and their relationship with the offender was something like the boss and the worker under that particular boss, or the director and the actor, etc. In such cases, they could not actually afford to come out, and they could not speak about what victimization was happening. So during that time, they were actually blocked victims. They did not want to look discuss with anybody. They did not want to report that victimization. But suddenly, after many years, they decided that nay, we should speak out. And what is the consequence of that? When they spoke out, it was too late for the criminal justice machinery to go ahead for finding out the evidences, etc. So what is the consequence? Again, the offenders who were in the dominant position, they were temporarily taken aback because the victims have started speaking. Especially from the Indian perspective, you can get to see that in such cases what happens, the offenders who may be in a dominant position, now they came out and said that because you have come out with some fictitious stories, etc., now I will file for defamation case. Now you get to see that the offender who may have been victimized because of the the dominant presence of the so-called offenders, who may have told that we have been victimized sexually, etc., by these kinds of offenders who are very much dominant. Now they have to say something like, I'm sorry, I am withdrawing my application, and all these things. So here, this kinds of relationship with the victim and the offender actually makes the victim more withdrawn. They will not be able to speak out. They will not be able to do anything for safeguarding their own rights. So these were the two victimologists that I wanted to discuss about. Also, on the basis of this, you will also get to see that there are some kinds of theories that have been that have come up, and these theories also speak about, say for example, routine activity theory, which I discussed here. That routine activity theory is a kind of triangular theory. There is a motivated offender, there is a target victim, and there is a lack of guardian. So in that case also, if you see this Benjamin Mendelssohn and Hans von Hentig's categorization of the victims and their relationship with the offender, you will get to know that how they attract more victimization, or how the victimization is caused. Lifestyle exposure theory also, you get to see that as I was discussing about Nirbhaya's case, but Nirbhaya's case is a unique case, so I should not put more emphasis on that. But the lifestyle exposure theory also says that it is like when the person starts mixing with the other peer groups, and they start behaving towards the satisfaction of that peer group, they become some kinds of addicted to a particular lifestyle. For example, I would rather say adolescent youths, especially for boys and also for girls. You get to see that those boys and girls who are coming from very orthodox family, and they are from the very young childhood, they have been told that cigarette smoking is very bad. Now they get to meet some other friends of them who would tell them that just taste it, just try it, and you will become one of our members, one of our group members, because otherwise you are like a very much bahanji type, or you are like a very much like like gawar jaise hota hai na. So to come out of that kind of understanding, to come out of that kind of tagging, the children may also start trying these things, not understanding that how much bad impact it may have on their health. Now in that kind of cases also, the lifestyle changes, and that lifestyle is exposed, and they get to see more persons who might be coming over to them, and they will be influencing them to take up some kinds of more lifestyle, like new lifestyle, which may not be beneficial for them. Further, there is also another understanding of the lifestyle exposure theory, as I gave you the example of this women wearing gold chains, and then they are being targeted by the offenders. In such case also, in some cases the persons cannot come out of their lifestyle. So in order to save their own lifestyle, or in order to carry on with their lifestyle, they might also attract some other persons who will be doing some more harm. So I think I have taken much time. It is almost 40 minutes. So now I will take the questions, and this is something which is a very basic understanding of victim-offender relationship. I'll take the questions. If I have any questions, you can definitely ask me. If there is any question, or if anybody wants to interact with me, you can definitely consider asking these questions. But do remember that since this is a very basic understanding of victimology, you have to go for deeper research in understanding the victim-offender relationship, and how this kinds of relationship might attract more victimization, and it can be escalated. Okay, in case some women or girls feel guilty for the offense committed against them, which category do they fall into? Okay, I would rather say if they're like Kishita. Okay, now the thing is that what is the difference between complainant and the victim? Very good question. I'll come to this question later, but let me say that if the victims feel that because of the social tabooing, or because they are feeling, because they have also contributed to the victimization, they might fall into the, I'm telling they might, because you have to see the case, then only you will be able to understand that in which category they will feel. But you might get to see they are falling in the category of blocked victims, where they do not want to come and share anything. There should be somebody, some external influence on them, whereby they will be motivated to speak out. And this is something which is like blocked, or what should I say, blocked victims, whereby they might live with the anger, they might live with the frustration, they might withdraw from the life, or they might withdraw from the regular day-to-day activities, and they might not come up to speak with anybody. Coming to the second question, what is the difference between the complainant and the victim? Now see, complainant can be anybody who has got the information about the victimization, and the complainant may not be necessarily the victim alone. Complainant can be an eyewitness. Complainant can be anybody who had received some information, hearsay also, and he or she has decided that no, I will go to the police station and I will make a complaint about this particular victimization. Victim can also be a complainant. But again, I'm telling, the complainant can be somebody who is not a victim. Victim can be a complainant also. Victim can be like, if I am victimized, I can myself go to the police station and I can complain. But if I am victimized and if I am not able to go to the police, or as I was discussing, like the previous question, that I am blocked and I do not want to go to anybody else, but I have shared this thing with my very trusted friend, that particular person can also become a complainant. So when the entire pre-trial investigation etc. will go on, the police may need to interrogate, the police may need to ask or examine the questions from both the complainant and the victim. Complainant can be considered as a very good witness also. Let me take the next one. But now in the contemporary scenario, the victimization of everyone is happening online. Yes, and according to the lifestyle theory, using internet, our lifestyle. So how do we protect ourselves from that kind? This is Sudhiti Tandon. Okay. Okay. See, the thing is that when you are going online, as my understanding says, you have to be extremely careful about your own data protection. And not only your own data protection, your own device hygiene also. We are online, and I mean, we are using online mechanism, etc. And we do get to see, because there is a lack of, like, relationship between us and our guardian, that is the police. You may not always reach out to the police to actually make a complaint. Also, do remember, as a law student, you might have seen in the CRPC classes that it very clearly says that how to lodge a complaint to the police. There are portals, there are police web portals are also there, whereby you can get to see that you can lodge a complaint and the police will take it from there, and you need not go to the police station directly. But in several cases, you will get to see that the police, inspector, or the person who is investigating officer, etc., or the officer in charge, they might not always work on the online portal, that means the police portal, and on the complaint that has been made online, because especially in cyber crime cases, they actually have to see the entire URL, the screenshots, and also the chain of evidence. So in such cases, definitely, because we cannot go out right now, we cannot go to the police also, and maybe there is a lack of awareness among the police also, there is possibility that the information that we have given to the police, even that can also be mismanaged, mishandled, and that can be misused. Now, for that particular reason, definitely you should go ahead for reporting the matter to the police, but please do understand that you have to be secured with your own device. Your device hygiene should be maintained properly. Do not discuss about your case with others, and if you get to see any sort of fake profile being created or revenge porn, etc., being created, immediately report the matter to the website concerned. We know that the websites are also working on a very low infrastructure facilities, and also the manpower is very low, but still then, once the report has been made, they can also be considered, coming within the meaning of website liability and also due diligence liability. I think this is what I can offer for your question, Sudhiti. And request to be, some crime is victimless, like as prostitution, smoker, please explain. Okay, these are the criminal activities. The last question that I can get to see here, these are the criminal activities, these are the victimization things which are actually called as victimless crimes. Now these victimless crimes are something whereby the person who is committing the person who is don't take it in a negative way, the person who is committing something, he or she can actually attract the victimization because of his or her work. Here you have given the example of prostitution also, because in many places, including India, prostitution is not considered illegal still now. Please correct me if I am wrong. But what happens in such kinds of cases, it is not only prostitution or smoking, you'll also get to see victimless crimes. Say for example, a child, he runs away from the family home, or he runs away from a place of safety because he does not want to be in such kinds of protective way, that abhi park mein mat jao, then don't play with the devices because you will get victimized, etc. And he runs away because he wants to enjoy the situation, and once he runs away, then he attracts more of victimization. These are actually victimless crimes. Victimizations, victim offender relationship in the second phase starts when that particular child comes across any other offender who picks him up and who takes him for sexual abuse purposes or for any other purposes. But when he runs away from the home, that itself is a victimless crime, because he cannot actually say कि मेरे मम्मी पापा ने बोले थे कि you have to live in this situation, and the mummy papa are not actually offenders. It is for the good benefit of the child that they were telling that you cannot go out. Coming to the prostitution, with due respect to all the sex workers, I must say that where do the sex work actually start? In several cases, you will get to see that all these sex workers may have been actually trafficked, or they may have entered into this particular sex work because there were no other job opportunities available for them. So yes, you can definitely say that it is a victimless crime, because they are being victimized again and again because of their profession which they have chosen, either due to some compulsion or because they have been trafficked. So this is a kind of victimization, and it is victimless victimization. For this, we should have some more discussions. Okay. Okay. So I think we can go ahead for ending the sorry. I think this is we can stop the classes now, and it is already, oh my god, it's 5:45, and I think I'm from Gujarat right now. I'm residing in Gujarat, and outside it is still sunny, so I want to go out for a walk, and I do not want you guys to be victimized because of me. So let me try to end this video here, and I wish to interact more with you all in future. And if you have any questions related to any class, etc., do consider writing to me, to reach out to me through any platform, because I'm very much active in all social media profiles. So thank you so much.